major legal showdown brewing in the oil and gas sector. Client Earth, an environmental organization, is taking Shell to court and is asking the High Court in UK to order the company to adopt a strategy to manage climate risk. This is a big deal because it's the first time a company is being taken to court in the UK over its lack of action on climate change. Their documents on their website, that is Client Earth's website, says our lawsuit alleges that Shell's board of directors has failed to manage the risk posed to the company by climate change and that it is breaking company law. Okay, let me see if I got this right. So Shell is a big oil and gas company that's facing some big risk from climate change. Client Earth thinks that the people in charge at Shell are not doing a good job of dealing with this risk and that it could be bad news for the company and its investors in the future. Client Earth is taking legal action to try and get the leaders at Shell to do better and protect the company for the long haul. The document also says Shell faces a number of material climate-related risks arising from the physical impact of the climate crisis, the effect of the energy transition, and the increased likelihood of litigation linked to regulatory compliance and climate inaction, all of which compound in the long term. So here's the deal. Shell has some big problems on its ends because of the climate crisis. Their facilities like drilling platforms and power stations are at risk from things like extreme weather and rising sea levels. And on top of that, there's a risk that as the world moves away from fossil fuels, a lot of Shell's assets could become stranded and become worthless. This is a huge problem because those assets require a lot of money and time to build. The people in charge at Shell know about this risk, but they are not doing well enough to deal with them. That is the concern. Alright, so Shell said they would want to be a net zero company by 2050, by the year 2050, and they said that they set some targets to try and get there. But according to Client Earth, there are some major problems with Shell's plan. For one, they are not actually doing anything differently to make this happen, and their targets aren't really that impressive. They are just aiming to reduce the carbon intensity of their products, not the actual amount of emissions they are putting into the air. And even with these weak targets, they are only planning on reducing emissions by 5% by 2030. On top of all that, Shell is still drilling for oil and gas and not investing enough in clean energy. They are also not doing enough to follow a recent court ruling that said they need to reduce their emissions by 45% by 2030. Client Earth is worried that if Shell doesn't step up and take real action soon, they are going to be left behind as the world moves to cleaner energy. So the legal issue surrounding this is multifarious because according to Client Earth, Shell's board of directors is breaking the law. In the UK, company directors have a legal obligation to assess, report, and manage any material risk to the company. Client Earth believes that the way Shell's board is handling the climate risk facing the company is violating these obligations outlined in the UK Companies Act. The Act requires directors to act in a way that will benefit the company and its shareholders in the long term and to be diligent in their duties. Client Earth is taking legal action against Shell's board for not living up to this standard. Meanwhile, BP, that is British Petroleum, who are also one of the world's largest oil and gas producers, has warned that investments in oil and gas production will be necessary for the next 30 years to avoid shortages and price swings. The company said in its annual energy outlook that even with significant climate policy changes, fossil fuel will still account for 20% of primary energy in the year 2050. BP's chief economist Spencer Dale said there needs to be continuing investment in oil and gas to prevent disruptions like the one seen last year with Russia's oil and gas supplies, and to make the transition away from hydrocarbons orderly. Client X is taking legal action against Shell in the UK, and they are being supported by a group of investors who hold more than 12 million shares in the company. That is, investors who hold shares in Shell. These investors include UK pension funds, French asset managers, Belgian asset managers, and Danish pension funds. The investors support Client X's claim as they believe that the case is in their interest as shareholders. Client X has also received support from other shareholders who align with the argument. Some of these supporters are divested from Shell, but now see the company as an attractive investment again if their claim is successful and Shell adopts a Paris-aligned strategy. However, none of the supporters are financially supporting the claim. That is, none of the investors who are also supporting Client X's claim are into it financially. Like I said earlier, it is the first time that a company's board is being held accountable for not preparing for the energy transition. Client X is hoping that by bringing this case, they can get Shell's board to take the climate risk seriously and do something about it. Client X is taking Shell's board to its courts, and they're asking the High Court to force the board to adopt a plan to manage climate risk that follows their legal obligations. But Shell's board says they will fight this in court. Client X has a team of legal experts led by boutique firm Palace Partners working on their side, but the final decision will be up to the High Court. So, what is the impact of this lawsuit on the oil and gas sector? Well, it is definitely sending ripples through the industry. If the court sides with Client X, it could set a major precedent and could lead to other energy companies facing similar lawsuits, especially in the era of greenwashing and unnecessary playing to the gallery being done by energy companies. So this could mean that the oil and gas sector would need to re-evaluate their strategies and take more meaningful steps to address their impact on the environment. In any case, it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds and what the outcome will be. It could have far-reaching implications for the oil and gas sector and for companies' responsibilities towards the environment. Stay tuned and subscribe to see more developments in this sector. Thank you.